All. Welcome back to Homeschooling with Classic Stories. This is the second part of week 5, Two Bad Mice. And so we're taking a look at some things that we did this week in order to talk about the story a little more in depth. So we started by doing kitchen skills. So for kitchen skills, if you recall from the story, it is the food that brings the mice in initially to the dollhouse. And one of the things that they want is the fish that's stuck to the plaster plate. And so, taking this idea, both of my children do eat fish. So, I regularly prepare fish. And so, I thought, why not this week have my son do it? There isn't anything complicated that I do. I'm just making baked fish. So, if you have other preparations or your children don't eat fish, there were other things on the table within the story, but that's what we did for kitchen. So we just used frozen tilapia and like a frozen salmon fillet because one eats red fish and one eats white fish because that's how life is. And so I defrosted them, and then my son cut open the little bags that they came in. He washed them, he put them onto the tray, he oiled the tray, put the things on. I gave him the different seasonings, and kind of emotionally let go of how they were going to be seasoned. But I gave him I think I used 5 different seasonings for it, but it just handing him it, letting him sprinkle it on, handing him the next one, letting him sprinkle it on. He really enjoyed it. And it didn't actually taste bad just because he used more of some things than I do and less of some things than I did. It actually didn't matter as much as I thought it would. And so, anyway, then he really enjoyed taking it to the oven, putting it in, closing it up, and turning the oven on. So those were the steps that he did. When the bell rang, when the timer went off, you know what I'm saying. I took the fish out and I did and put it onto the plate for him. So he did not do the hot based part of it. So that was what he did for kitchen this week was he made his own fish dinner. So that was really nice and was a good experience for him. And he really enjoyed it. And the truth is that was something that he was very capable of that I had never really thought to do with him until reading this story. Um, if your child doesn't eat fish, you can check out some of the other things for kitchen this week. But because it was food that drew the mice in, it might be a good week to do kitchen if you don't normally do kitchen. Then, kind of in the middle for science, we did things that break. You saw that Tom Thumb and Hunka Munka were kind of in a destructive mood when they didn't understand the items within the house that they were fake. So we also did things that break. I think, like most parents, I am usually very averse to things breaking. And so I realized that my son didn't really have a concept of what kinds of things will actually break and what that looks like when they break, because that's something that I actively avoid. And so for science this week, we gathered up some items. He predicted whether or not those things would break. And then we very literally threw them out the window into the parking lot below. If you're concerned about our neighbors, this week was a holiday, which means where we live, the entire city virtually empties out to go to more rural areas. And so there was no one in the parking lot. Um, our neighbors were all gone. So this was kind of the perfect time to do it. We live on the fourth and fifth floors, so we just went up to the roof and threw things out, threw things out the window of the roof. So that's what we did. And so I'll show you some of the items that we used. In case you are wondering, I'll show you this first since it is melting. The first thing that like made the most sense to me was an ice cube. This was really easy to do. My son has seen many ice cubes break, so he correctly predicted this one because ice cubes breaking, that's a normal thing. You're taking it out of the freezer and it drops. So he already had a good idea that this was a thing that broke. So this gave him some satisfaction of, oh, I know what things look like when they break. He didn't have a lot of the vocabulary like shatter, shards of ice. So those were all some vocabulary that we got to do as a result of breaking things. Um, Other things that we threw out, I have a hockey puck. He actually thought that this would break. Um, I'm not sure why. Maybe because it's been used so many times, so it has lots of divots in it and such. But um, obviously, this did not break. So he didn't predict this one correctly, but he was really curious about this and why it didn't break. So he talked about it being very firm. It is solid, and kind of maybe we talked, you know, sort of a bit more about um, that it sort of bounced when it hit. So that was helpful. As a result of the hockey puck, he also got this one correct, but I think he would have gotten this anyway. This is a ball. This is not really a plastic ball. It's a squishy rubber ball. If you throw a plastic ball out, well, that's kind of the next thing I'll show you. We just have a squishy ball. It bounced as well, and so that was a really good seeing the hockey puck first. He was able to correctly predict, oh, things that bounce are going to bounce. So that was good. And then um, the other obvious thing, an egg. For this one, he has seen eggs crack, but not as often. He has cracked eggs for kitchen. And so he was able to figure out that that broke, but there was, I guess, some sort of disconnect between the word crack and break. And so through this, we were able to kind of clear up that vocabulary that cracking and breaking are very much related. And so when he cracks an egg, what happens? It goes into two pieces, mostly. Um, so it mostly goes into two pieces, and the center goes into the bowl that he's cooking with. But when it breaks, it splatters was a vocabulary word we were able to do. That was really good that we were able to get some additional words. The fifth thing was a toy that I hate. It's obviously not this one. It was the green one to this, but all this is it used to be a bubble blower, but it's really really cheap. So, like it's just it's trash. Um, so kind of understanding that like flimsy plastic also breaks was something that he was not really prepared for, but thought was very cool. So this is something that broke. Obviously, it was the green one, not this one. We still have this one. Maybe I'll go up to the roof and throw it out the window. Um, Anyway, if you have a toy that's very cheap plastic, that would be a fun one. If it's not that cheap of plastic, as a hint, you can stick it in the freezer beforehand and it will definitely break if you do it that way. So, if you're looking for some plastic to break, this was a good one. I'm sure you don't have this particular item, but any kind of flimsy trash plastic works for this, especially at a high enough height. Okay, so that's what we did for kitchen and for science this week. But the worksheet this week, which you'll see down below, is very plain. It's this. So the worksheet this week is simply a letter study on the word doll. The word doll is fantastic for a lot of reasons. For one, you see that the capital letters and the lowercase letters, basically, I stacked them against each other. So, like, we've started by practicing him saying this word. So he actually sounded this word out. So, l, all, doll, and he figured that out. Some of that, of course, was context. He knew that we had read a story about dolls this week, and so he had some idea. But that was actually really good that he was able to sound this word out because of the way it's aligned on this worksheet. But what this worksheet is for is it's meant for him to do some creative drawing of a doll. So I prompted him to say, gee, doesn't this look like a head and a body and two legs? And a head and a body and two legs. Maybe we could get our markers and finish the dolls. And so that's what we did. And he just sort of did it his own way. This was really more imaginative than anything else, but it was also really good for him to kind of look at the letters and how they were shaped. And then, of course, there was the sounding out aspect as well. This was just a really cute way to do a letter study, to be frank with you. So, this is the one that he did. I really like this. It is not what I would have drawn, obviously, but this is what he decided on. So the first thing he did was he decided that the dolls obviously need arms and hands. So that's what he did first. Gave them both arms and hands. Then he did the shoes next, realizing that they should have some shoes on. And then he started looking at himself. I perhaps had the impression that the dolls would be wearing skirts or dresses like they were in the story as they were um, Lucinda and Jane were, I guess, girl dolls. And so my son just looked at what he was wearing. He was wearing shorts, so he gave the dolls shorts and t-shirts. So that was fine. In talking about hair, he wanted to give them hair, but I think that I think that at this point he was getting a little bit frustrated because on this one, he recognized that he wanted to do hair and he recognized he wanted to do my hair, but he didn't really know how to draw hair. That's a concept that we've never talked about, and I didn't think I had to teach, but he just did the spikes to do hair. I think that we're going to do a drawing maybe next week, probably outside of the scope of this, but just to make sure that he knows that he can draw long hair down like this. Because he seemed really kind of frustrated that, like, why doesn't this hair look the way it should look in my head? Anyway, so that's what he did. He chose not to give them faces. He was very adamant that they should not have faces. So they do not. But your child may choose to give them faces. Your child may also notice that the letters are looking at each other. And so maybe like one eye, a mouth, and a nose, one eye, a mouth, and a nose, and that they're kind of looking at each other. But that is all up to your child. I would not do a whole lot of prompting unless they seem to be a little bit stuck. So if they are a little bit stuck, maybe you could prompt something like, oh, what, look at yourself, go look in the mirror. What else is missing? Do they have clothes on? What body parts are missing? And just let them draw whatever they want to for their dolls, sort of analyzing the shapes, but also more imaginative than anything else. So that's what we did for our worksheet this week, for our letter study worksheet this week. Again, you'll find the link down below. If you like it, please do a thumbs up, leave a comment, and that's it. Next week, we'll start our new story. So I will see you for our new story. Bye.